expressed its delight at the decision of Walt Disney and Walt Disney Productions to come and be among us. Thank you very much.
This 1965 news conference is the first official announcement of Walt Disney's vision for Central Florida, known today as Disney World. As early as 1960, under a variety of names, the Disney Corporation quietly purchased over 27,000 acres of swampland south of Orlando. At that time, it was the biggest mystery in Central Florida.
There was great speculation at the time. People in the community knew that there was property being purchased throughout the area. One of the rumors was that Boeing was going to move a plant here. Another was that they were buying the land because the stumps had a product in it from which you could make dynamite. There were all kinds of strange stories as to what was going on.
Once Disney acquired the property needed to build Mickey's Kingdom, they came forth with their ideas and the mystery was over. Walt Disney laid his cards on the table announcing his plans for the thousands of acres in Orange and Osceola counties. A year later, 1966, he died of cancer. But the dream didn't end. His older brother, Roy Disney, continued to pursue Walt's vision for Central Florida. In 1967, the Disney Corporation convinced the Florida legislature to create a special district with extraordinary powers. The Reedy Creek, an environmentally sensitive waterway, runs straight through the 43 square miles in Orange and Osceola counties owned by the Disney Corporation. The legislation established 2 cities within this special district and renamed the region. Instead of the Reedy Creek Drainage District, it was called the Reedy Creek Improvement District as it's known today. Former Senator Robert Elrod was one of the key sponsors of that legislation. He served in the House and Senate from 1963 to 1968.
Well, the powers that they were given gave them the ability to control what they were doing without any surprises along the way, and I'm not aware of any abuse or misuse of the power. In my opinion, the Disney has been really great members of our community.
Recalling the events in the legislature in 1967, Mallory Horn, former House Speaker and Senate President, was a freshman senator at the time. Aside from Disney, Horn indicates the legislature was addressing 2 other important issues during that year: reapportionment and a proposal to move the state capital from Tallahassee to Orlando. Horn says despite the concerns and criticism over the Disney World proposal, few questions were asked.
It granted more authority to private enterprise than this state, and I think any state, has ever granted to private enterprise. It endowed them with all the power and authority of government. It passed, in a word, for 2 reasons. First of all, Florida was in a tremendous period of flux, change from being a rather sleepy agricultural state and very conservative state to a very urban state. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, comes this opportunity to have the Magic Kingdom. So the aura of that, coupled with the discord over reapportionment and the ambition of the Florida legislature, created an environment in which almost anything could have passed. In fact, anything did pass.
Why was so much power given to the Reedy Creek Improvement District?
They convinced the legislature that they had to be all-powerful. They had to be a government within a government. They bought us and paid for us, and now in that little old section of Florida, they own it.
The Reedy Creek Improvement District proposal passed unanimously in the Senate, but in the House, 1 representative voted no. That was former Representative Thomas Spencer, now a Dade County Circuit Court judge who declines to comment on his decision 2 decades later.
He was constitutionally disturbed with what we were doing, and he had the gumption to say no. There were a myriad of reasons for his no. They're all what we've just been talking about. But he just simply wasn't willing to trade, quote, his soul for that bowl of porridge.
The Reedy Creek Improvement District is a powerful entity. The 1967 law provides the district with the ability to establish their own government, including departments to handle environmental regulation, recreation, utilities, and development. So powerful, the district was granted the authority to build a nuclear power plant. The law states the city shall have the power and authority to examine into, develop, and utilize new concepts, designs, and ideas, and to own, acquire, construct, reconstruct, equip, operate, maintain, extend, and improve such experimental public facilities and services, including by way of example and not of limitation facilities for the generation of electric power by atomic energy.
I don't think it poses a real threat because they're so conscious of the public feelings towards them that they would not create that tempest in a teapot. But it does exhibit the recklessness with which we pass that bill.
I think at the time the legislation was developed, they were looking for a method to be as all-inclusive as is possible. Obviously, we've never seriously considered a nuclear power facility here on our property. Never is a long time to say that it could never be done. I'm not sure I could sit here and tell you that, but the probability of that type of thing occurring is obviously rather extremely remote.
Tom Moses heads the Reedy Creek Improvement District, which many call Florida's 68th county. It is comprised of two cities, the city of Bay Lake, where the Magic Kingdom, Epcot, and MGM Studios are located, and Lake Buena Vista. Both have city councils and meet bi-monthly. Bay Lake has a trailer park consisting of 21 residents. 11 are registered voters. And Lake Buena Vista has 26 residents. Of them, 18 are registered voters. That according to the Orange County Supervisor of Elections. But the Census Bureau has a different story. As far as they're concerned, the population is zero.
There is a permanent population, though it be very small, within the two cities and the Reedy Creek Improvement District. We are housing a small portion of the people who live and who work here.
It's a farce. I mean, it's a show. It's a city without people. It's government without a governed. But they've got the figureheads, the power people, the mayors and so forth, and commissioners are there. But the governed are uniquely absent. And that's one of the things that carves this thing out as what it is, and that is a subterfuge to bring one of the biggest, cleanest, best industries to Florida that we could possibly ever get.
The Reedy Creek Improvement District operates independently. The only outside agency they rely on is the Orange County Sheriff's Department. Disney has its own security force, but the officers do not have arresting powers. The Sheriff's Department has a 5-person bureau to assist Disney. Sergeant Mike Cofield, who heads the bureau, says over 500 cases are investigated monthly.
Tourists are often victims of crime, and the need for law enforcement is quite necessary within Disney itself.
What are some of the major problems as far as crime's concerned?
A lot of theft. People come on vacation, they get real lackadaisical.
The Reedy Creek Improvement District under the 1967 law was exempt from many state requirements. But now the district says they comply and they're treated like any other municipality.
Well, I think that's part of the fantasy land of Disney. It's hard to believe that they could say that to you in a straight face without laughing. The Reedy Creek District is a unique district in the United States. There's no place else that gives a private company as much autonomy in terms of what they can do, how they can do it, that I know of. And if
Commissioner Donegan, one of Orange County's more vocal critics of Disney World, says Disney has the competitive edge and doesn't pay its fair share. He agrees Disney has benefited the region, being the biggest employer, providing 33,000 jobs, and improving the economy of the state with increased tourism and business opportunities. However, he questions the rapid growth prompted by Disney.
It's hard for me to criticize Reedy Creek and how it was created. But along the way, there could have been changes in the course of direction that would have assisted the surrounding areas in helping them with planning for this major impact that was going to happen, which nobody really planned for until 1982 was the first real movement in trying to do something to protect the quality of the Central Florida area.
This is the Reedy Creek, south of Bay Lake and the Disney World development. It's another world, away from the hustle and bustle of tourist and traffic, a region filled with wildlife, fish, and game. But groups like the Wildlife Federation fear Disney's presence has been detrimental.
In my lifetime, in another 20 years, this place will just be a madhouse. I'm an old Florida cracker, and I hate to see it come. My children I'm really spending a lot of time for them to enjoy it now. Because in their lifetime, I'm afraid if we don't put this into a state preserve or some kind of protection program, that Disney World will bring their people in, if it's not anything but bring millions of people on nature trails. And I'm afraid that would have a big impact on the wildlife.
Although Knowles recognizes the financial benefits of Disney, he says the fish and wildlife are paying the price. 48-year-old Knowles, who owns and operates an air prop business locally, has lived along Reedy Creek all his life. He says when Disney began building their new kingdom, locks were constructed, reducing water flow.
The stopping of the water flow has really impacted the vegetation to take over the river and starting in the lake now, and it's really gone down in the last 15 to 20 years to the point that a fishing boat cannot even operate, and it's just sort of turned into an airboat lake because that's the only type of boat that can really get around out here.
Disney disagrees. Along with its own environmental affairs department, Disney also is monitored by the state.
We put in aerators down there to get the dissolved oxygen content up, and I don't think the dissolved oxygen content is any worse leaving the property than it is entering the property.
The water, the dissolved oxygen was low in there, but that is normal for that type of stream. That's a swamp and bog stream in there.
Members of the Wildlife Federation say it's too late now. The damage has been done. The state agrees mistakes have been made along the way, and Disney is trying to right a wrong by exceeding state standards.
They have had some fines by the Environmental Protection Agency, but in a lot of cases, they seem like they're more paper violations than something serious. And they seem real responsive to correcting those situations, to avoiding them. And as far as from my aspects and the water quality aspects, they seem like a pretty good neighbor. I would say that if they were just building Disney today, they would not be able to do it under our current rules and regulations like they did it back in 1970, 71.
The Wildlife Federation continues to meet with state leaders fighting for tougher standards and a cleaner environment.
We're not accomplishing it as fast as we would like. That's a slow boat in politics for the people I feel like that are right. The people that's wrong, when you start slinging your money around, you can get what you want done in a hurry. And of course, everybody loves Disney World, and it has done good for the business people, for the entertainment of the world. But for what the outside here, in these areas like this area here, I'd rather not ever see it got here. It could have stayed in California.
While Central Florida continues to grow by leaps and bounds, the state is closely monitoring development. The Tallahassee-based growth management group called the 1,000 Friends of Florida says the Reedy Creek Improvement District is right on target.
They were exempt from certain environmental statutes. But in 1985, the legislature said, we want to plan all of Florida according to a set of minimum guidelines, and they didn't want to exclude anybody. So they included Reedy Creek, and they have prepared a plan that sets out what their existing conditions are and what they generally see their development to be in the year 2001.
Looking at Disney World as it stands today, only 20% of their property is developed. First with the Magic Kingdom in 1971, including dozens of rides and themes such as Tomorrowland, Adventureland, and Fantasyland. In 1982, Disney completed its 260-acre international showplace, Epcot, which stands for the Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow. Walt Disney envisioned Epcot as a working and living city independently run, but instead it materialized as a theme park.
Okay, roll camera. Roll! Background. Action!
In 1989, Disney MGM Studios, a working TV production studio, opened. Disney now has 17 hotels along with resorts and shops. During the 20th anniversary celebration, Walt Disney's successors, including Michael Eisner, announced plans for, yes, another theme park.
We have the infrastructure, the desire, and the beginning of ideas for a fourth and maybe even a fifth park. But that may take 5, 10, or more years.
Disney's 20th anniversary is a 15-month celebration. The focus of the celebration was on the actual anniversary, October 1st. 8,000 journalists, thousands of tourists, and a score of celebrities converged at Disney World for the big event. President George Bush even decided to hold his Points of Light ceremony at Disney World, honoring citizens involved in volunteer community service.
Walt Disney once said, "The greatest moments in life are not concerned with selfish achievements, but rather with the things we do for the people." And he was absolutely right. And that creed brings us together in this extraordinary place, sharing this extraordinary day.
Disney unveiled its new shows and programs. The famed electrical parade has been moved to France, where Euro Disney is being built. And now Disney World has a Spectro Magic Show with the latest in fiber optic holographic technology. Roy Disney dedicated the park 20 years ago to his brother Walt Disney. And now, 2 decades later, Walt's nephew and Roy's son, Roy Disney, read from that same dedication plaque.
Dedicated this first day of October 1971, and it's signed Roy O. Disney, my dad.
Mickey, let the party begin.
Reflecting on the creation of the Reedy Creek Improvement District, Roy Disney believes his uncle Walt and his father would have gone through with their plan here in Florida one way or another. But the legislation made it easier to turn their dreams into reality.
Oh, it probably would have, but it would have been a lot harder to do, I think, under those circumstances. You know, it was right at that time, I think it was really necessary that we had some sort of a civic ability to go ahead and do all the myriad things that essentially a city has to do.
Despite criticism over environmental issues, population, taxes, and the transportation crisis facing the Orlando region, tourism and growth management officials believe overall Disney has had a positive impact on Central Florida. Following in the footsteps of Walt Disney's success are hundreds of attractions, souvenir shops, restaurants, and hotels. Business owners say they wouldn't be here today if it weren't for Disney World.
They jump-started the tourism economy here and changed the situation from one that was largely citrus-based to one that is much broader-based economy today. And were instrumental in creating and attracting a large number of first-class attractions and tourism businesses.
Universal is the new kid on the block in the Orlando region. Even though Universal is an established movie-making company from Hollywood, their Florida theme park is in direct competition with Disney's MGM Studios.
I would certainly say that it's the only 2 products in the market that have that type of theme behind it, but we feel we're winning that competition.
Cut. By the way, there's one thing I would like to clear up. I didn't do it.
Since Disney, attractions of all sorts have established themselves in Florida. While many agree business has been good, the competition has been fierce.
Attractions would have been attracted to this area. Now, whether or not SeaWorld specifically would have come here, I think Disney's presence had a lot to do with it. It's sort of like when you see a McDonald's, you may across the street see a Burger King, that kind of concept. But Florida, again, has always been a good draw for tourism, and it would have been a matter of time, you know, that people would have come here. But I think Disney's presence really added credibility to it, and the other giants decided to come in as well.
very difficult, very difficult. In 1985, I believe it was, Disney announced they were going to be building the water park, and it was just before we got our financing to build our water park, and it surely changed the picture a little bit. And when Typhoon Lagoon opened 2 years ago, I think it has definitely affected us. However, we've had increases each year. And so what it forces you to do is it forces you to identify your niche and to work a lot harder than you might otherwise be working.
I think Gatorland would still be here. I don't know whether they would be doing the amount of business that they are, or they would be, we are in the process of doing a $5 million expansion. Whether that would be going on or not, that would be questionable. But Gatorland's been here for 42 years, and I think it'll be here many years after.
The Department of Commerce reports 41 million visitors came to Florida in 1990. Of them, over 28 million vacationed at Disney World. While tourism-oriented businesses reap the benefits, residents say Central Florida's roads aren't capable of handling the high volume of visitors.
We try to tell our residents that, appreciate those visitors, because the visitor coming to Florida generates 20% of all of our sales tax. And of that, $1.72 billion a year in sales tax are generated by tourists. So probably some negatives from tourists. You might hear that, gee whiz, the tourists are back and the roads are clogged. But we probably need some more supporting roads in Orlando, but I think we're looking at that.
So where would Central Florida be if Walt Disney had gone elsewhere 2 decades ago?
I think Orlando would be popular, but not as popular. People are going to go to the sun destinations. But Orlando being away from the beach and so forth wouldn't be as strong as it is right now with Disney being there.
Without Disney, there would be no Universal, no SeaWorld, no Jewelry World or T-shirt World. It would be, it would still be a predominantly middle-class city in Florida.
I would hate to think where we would be today if Walt Disney World had not come to Florida. When you stop and think of the tax revenue that has been produced as a result of Disney being here, true, we're in financial problems now, but without those revenues, just think how serious the problems would have been.
They bought us. Bottom line, they bought us. And it's too late, having sold our soul, to say, give me part of it back.